He's so funny because he doesn't talk well either.
You kind of got a young voice. You got a real soft speaking voice.
Okay. I know I do. I'm embarrassed about it sometimes.
You shouldn't be. It's
I'll
nice.
I'll listen back to myself. I'm like, man, I sound like a child.
It fits like what you do very well though. Like when you start talking like on a Sunday morning, I feel welcomed and I work here. I'm like, you know what? I'm in the right place. I feel comforted. I feel at peace.
Oh man.
Then I see Grayson and I'm like, what kind of church is this?
Right.
Who are they letting in here?
I agree.
Especially the first day he walked in.
With his womanly hair.
Welcome back to another episode of the YA podcast. Was that a soft voice?
It was nice. It was inviting.
Was that inviting? Good deal.
Welcoming.
What up, what up?
We had service like we typically do Sunday night at YA with a message. This was the second message in our message series titled Searching.
Wow.
Yes.
I didn't know you were paying attention.
I took notes. I gotta find them though.
This week we talked on such a profound topic. Something that everyone is always so interested in and something
Worried
that we
about.
all look forward to. Death.
I don't know if that's the intro I would have went
I
with.
forgot that's what we
topic.
talked about until you just said that because
But-
my notes aren't pulled up yet.
But yes, we did talk about death. But
Specifically out of Philippians.
it
This is
is,
how you started.
yeah, I
See,
did.
I pay attention.
And thank you, Grayson. It is one of those things though that like everybody thinks about. Nobody really wants to bring up
Yeah.
because it's kind of a heavy topic, or it can be scary, it can be intimidating.
See, that's what I was gonna say. This is why I don't talk. My next thing was gonna be, is death scary? Yes.
Well, what do you think, Grayson?
Is it inevitable? I
don't know if it's that.
Is it inevitable?
Inevitable,
Yes.
yes.
But can we still have peace in it? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the message.
long as you know where you're
Thanks
going.
for listening to the YA podcast. No, but it was an interesting topic to get into, and kind of it's one of those ones too where like as the speaker, when you're on stage, you kind of see people's faces, and I could tell like as soon as I brought it up, it was like this kind of like like this kind of hush in the room a little bit, but you could also tell that it's like I could see the wheels turning. I could see people really like, okay, I did need to hear this, and I was dealing with this, or even some of the conversations I had afterwards was like, hey, that really spoke to me for a specific reason.
Yeah. So you had said, like Grayson brought up Philippians 1:20 through 23, you had said that verse had changed your perspective on death. I want to read that real quick for the listeners. Like I said, this is Philippians 1, verses 20 through 23, and I'm reading out of the New Living Translation. For I fully expect and hope that I will never be ashamed, but that I will continue to be bold for Christ as I have been in the past. And I trust that my life will bring honor to Christ, whether I live or die. For to me, living means living for Christ, and dying is even better. But if I live, I can do more fruitful work for Christ. So I really don't know which is better. I'm torn between two desires. I long to be with Christ, which would be far better for me. But for your sakes, it is better that I continue to live. That went into 24. I'm very sorry. I lied to y'all. But you said that changed your perspective on death, or challenged your perspective on death. Do you want to
Elaborate.
Yeah, you want to elaborate about that? Like, give, I guess, what your perspective on death was prior to that, and then what it became after that.
Well, my perspective on death early on in my life was actually just kind of one of fear. I was, unfortunately, I lost some people very close to me pretty early on in life. My grandmother passed away when I was a teenager. I had some friends that passed away at different times kind of in my childhood. And so it caused me to kind of be confronted with that very early on.
Yeah.
And especially when you're a kid, you can't really wrap your mind around topics like that sometimes because it just seems so like, you're not thinking about, or you shouldn't be thinking about at that point, like, you know, what's life after death? Like, what happens? And so it was always scary to me to know that there was just this, I know we keep using this word, but this inevitable cutoff point where it's like, boom, this is it. And to be honest, it had a lot to do with why I wound up finding church and finding, you know, a relationship with God, because one of the big questions I had was like, what's going to happen to me? Yeah. What does this mean? Like, is it really just over? Am I just nothing once it happens? Like, what's this going to turn into? And finding out about, you know, God and, you know, the promises of a heaven and things like that, it really was like, okay, let me look into this. Let me see if this is for real. But even after giving my life to Jesus, there was still in my mind this like, okay, I know that you're telling me that, you know, this incredible promise is on the other side of this, but it's still like I'm experiencing, you know, the world that I'm living in now, which, as we've talked about, is broken and imperfect, but it's the world we have. And I have my friends and I have my family and I have, you know, hobbies and things that I enjoy doing. I like having my life. And so it's like there was always this uncertainty. And then I really looked into that verse, and I'm looking at it, and here's Paul saying like, "No, I want to get out of here.
Yeah,
like that sounds awesome. However, I'm gonna stay here because I still got work to do." And it really like put into perspective for me, like, man, I'm really looking at this from the wrong angle.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's okay for me to enjoy the things that I have right now, but man, what's coming is so much better. What's coming is so much more than what I can experience here. And that's ultimately, you know, the goal. Like, and even now, like, I love my life. I love what I get to do. I love hanging out with you guys all the time and having my wife and having everything that I have. But at the same time, there's nothing better than what's on the other side. I even like, you know, going back to all my health issues I had, that's one of the things I kind of said half jokingly, but when people were like, man, that was really rough, or even my wife and my family would be like, man, we don't know what we would have done if something would have happened to you, or that would have been so terrible. I'd be like, well, it would have been terrible for you guys.
Right.
I would have been on the other side having a ball. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm still thankful to be here with y'all. I love y'all, but like, it's really like that verse and just kind of learning more and being able to trust God more in that situation and know that, like, okay, whatever happens, He's got me.
Right.
Has really shifted my focus to be like, you know what? I don't need to be afraid of this thing.
Yeah.
If it's gonna happen, and when it happens, there's probably gonna be nothing I can do. Except get ready for the ride and get ready for what's on the other side of this thing. And if I have the Lord in my heart, if I'm doing what I need to be doing with that, then I know we're heading into something pretty great.
Yeah.
I personally never feared death.
Never, ever?
I feared how you could die, right? Like a painful, like that scared me. Like I never wanted to die
painfully.
Never wanted to feel death. You just wanted
like
to die.
in my sleep or just something instant. I was like, still, I guess, would hope like that's the way it goes. Until one, I got married, then I started to fear death, and then also now having a kid.
Yeah,
that kind of turned my perspective. So like before Christ, it was kind of just like it's gonna happen at some point, you know. Like it doesn't. I never did anything like let's drive 200 miles per hour on the interstate, and if I die, I die. Like it was nothing like that, but it was just like it wasn't scary.
Yeah.
Until even when I got saved, that probably made it less scary, right? It was like, well, at the end of the day, it's going to be better. You know, it's going to be sad, but it's going to be better. And then, you know, once I got married, though, once I had my kid, it's like, yeah, I don't want that.
Yeah. No, that's good because it kind of the same thing happened with me. Like I said, like I wasn't, when everything happened, you know, last year and I got really sick, when I came out of it, I wasn't like, oh no, I could have died. Like, yes, there was some of that, but to a larger degree, it was, man, I almost like made my wife a widow. Yeah. She would have had to live with that for the rest of her life. And my loved ones and ministry and everything else like that grieved my heart more than wow, it was almost over for me, because like I said, I had the perspective of I would have wound up in heaven and I would have been fine. But my heart broke when I thought about, like, even my wife telling me stories of her going home alone at night, and she would, forgive me for saying this if I'm not supposed to say this, babe, but like not wanting to sleep in our bedroom because she couldn't sleep in our bedroom without me, so she slept on the couch. And that made me think, like, wow, like what if I wouldn't have made it, and how would it? So like I just said I resonate with what you were saying on. I'm sure that having a wife, and especially a kid, changes that perspective a bit.
My wife and I joke often, like, I'll tell her, I hope I die before you because I don't want to live without you. And she'll say, like, no, I hope I die before you because I don't want to live without you. But then, like you said, to experience that, to get to the point where your wife really, I mean, she may have said she knew. Sorry, I'm getting tongue tied here. She knew she wasn't going to lose you, but I know that thought had to run through her mind at one point. And so, like, for her to think about that, like, man, what if Michael doesn't pull through? Like, how is life going to be from now on? To put myself in those shoes, put myself in your wife's shoes. One, I don't think I could ever be as stable and as calm as your wife was,
bro,
publicly through that situation. I know privately.
Yeah, I don't think you'd ever see me again.
No,
no, like that's facts. Like I think I'd be okay at some point, but like I would never walk. I would never go anywhere.
Yeah,
like DoorDash my groceries. Like no, like I'm done. Like I'm just like this is what I'm doing. I'm sitting at home. Like,
so
that's
like
it.
You're
like I don't want public interaction or how are you? Like don't ask me how I am.
I remember seeing her that one day that we went to the hospital, and
it blew my mind.
I don't know if she cried that day. Like I don't know if I saw her crying, but that was very early on. I'm like, how?
She was a rock star. She is a rock star, bro.
Yeah.
Like, my wife's awesome. And don't get me wrong, I had the same thoughts, like, when I was in the hospital, when I was awake and seeing her interact and doing what she was doing. Like, I was like, I would have been, if the roles were reversed, I'd have been a nervous wreck, like, the entire time.
I was thinking she is either very numb right now to everything and just, like, has no emotion, or the other thing is just... she's the strongest human I've ever seen in my life.
That's just how she attacks stuff. Not to turn this into a podcast about my wife, but she's always been like, as soon as something happens, she's like, here's where we're at. This is what we're doing. Let's deal with it, you know? But for me, getting back to what we're talking about, for me, like, feeling the moment of like, wow, she almost had to deal with what it would have been like if something had happened to me. And that's part of what makes, I think, death so scary for us, is because we can only really comprehend it from our side, from the human perspective. So all of us that are still living, we have experienced people that we love and care about dying, and for us on this side, that's the end. My mom passed away in 2016. I will never talk to my mother on this side of heaven again. Like, that is a tough thing to understand. That's a tough thing to wrap your mind around in the moment. So that's the perspective that we all have on death, especially for those who don't have the Lord in their lives. Like, for them, it's got to feel like that's it,
right?
Like, at least I have the reassurance that hopefully one day I'll be able to see my mom, you know, on the other side. But here on earth, death feels very final,
right?
And I think that's why, I mean, I even said this Sunday night, like, when stuff gets scary like that, when stuff gets hard to comprehend, we tend to push it away. We tend to not want to do it. I think of it like, you know, when you're a teenager and you got a ton of homework to do and it's a subject that you're not really good at. That's the homework you always want to put off. That's you always got something else to do, and it's less that you just don't want to do it, and more that I know that's going to kick my butt, and I don't want to, you know. And so I think we do that with topics in life a lot.
I think also part of the reason why we're so scared of death is because we think of time in the in terms of the world. We don't think of eternal time, because eternal time, like, yes, you won't be able to, like you said, you won't be able to talk to your mom this side of heaven, but the amount of time you'll get to spend with your mom on the other side
Mm-hmm.
is far greater than even if your mom would have lived a full life, and she wouldn't have died unexpectedly. She would have lived into her 80s, into her 90s, right? Even that has no, like, it doesn't compare to the amount of time that we get to spend with our loved ones and with the inhabitants of heaven. And I think that's part of the reason why it's so scary. It's just because we think of time in the earthly realm, and it, like I said, it's just so much different.
Yeah, and it also is the reason, like we talked about on Sunday night, why, because on this side of heaven where we're at, time is very final. It is very finite.
Yeah.
And we have a calling on our lives to reach people. And that calling, like, we can only do it while we're here. You know what I mean? And so you have a certain amount of time to do that. And that's why we really can't afford to waste time. We really can't afford to sit back. Even if you look at, like, from our perspective, being in ministry, we're always, our calendars are wild.
Right.
Like, the three of us have had conversations recently about how we fix some of that and keep ourselves from going nuts. But at the same time, it's like, there's a reason that there's so much to do. There's a reason that there's so much stuff on our calendar. It's because there's a lot of people out there that need to be reached, and we don't have forever to reach them.
Right.
We don't know how long we have.
Yes.
None of us are promised tomorrow. None of us are promised tomorrow. None of the people that we are called to reach are promised tomorrow. And if I don't make the right decisions now, it could affect whether or not I can get to this person before their time is up.
Yeah. That's exactly what your second point was. Death is a reminder. It's a reminder of how little time we have to reach the lost. We're only given an average of 70 years, and we're going to answer for the times that we didn't do the things God was calling us to do. We're gonna when we go before the throne of judgment, we're gonna answer for the times that we went the opposite way of what God was telling us to do. Sometimes when we're in Walmart, God is telling us, or God is trying to tell us to go speak to someone. Sometimes we have him blocked out. Sometimes we hear it and we just decide not to.
Like, I just came here to get some milk and go back home. Not trying to have this 30-minute conversation.
Yes.
But sometimes that 30-minute conversation is way more important than your milk. You know what I mean?
Like, that conversation could determine that other person's eternity.
Yeah.
And yes, God can use someone else. God will likely use someone else. But that person leaves that day and dies on their way home. That was you. Like, God put you in that situation. You chose to do something different. I think about that all the time when I go to the gym, and how often I just go in and try to get done and get out. And that goes into another point that you said on Sunday. Routines can be detrimental to your calling. Like you've said multiple times, this age group is so busy. We have so much stuff going on. Multiple people have multiple jobs,
own businesses,
yes.
Even. Yeah.
And we try to fit everything in, and then try to have enough time to sleep, and try to be with friends, go hang out with friends. But something, I was listening to a clip that was from a podcast. George Janko, I think it was his podcast, and he had these girls on there. They're called like the Bible Girls or something odd.
The cussing one?
Yeah. But he
No, I have not listened to whatever podcast they're talking about.
Backstory: George Janko didn't ever feel convicted when he would cuss. Like he said, he just never he never saw a problem with it. He said if I needed to step down to someone's level, like that was a non-believer, like he wasn't going to act like some hierarchy, like he would have the same language they would. Like that was just his perspective on it.
Yeah. I'm not even talking about that, about the cussing.
Oh, well, this is
something else. One of the girls said in that podcast was something about her time. And she was talking about her time in the morning, and how she, whenever she would not prioritize her time with God in the morning, she would run out of time. And before she left, she would not be able to spend time in the Word, or to spend time alone in prayer. But when she prioritized her time with God, and that was the first thing that she did in the morning, she then had extra time when she got done with everything. She had time left over. And I was thinking about that. And I try to prioritize my time with God every day. Sometimes it gets pushed off. Sometimes I miss it because it gets to the end of the day and I'm in bed and that's when I realize it. But like Michael's point, our routines can be detrimental to our calling if we prioritize, one, our time with God, but also prioritize our time of seeking God's will in the people that we're supposed to talk to. We're going to be able to fit everything in.
Yeah.
Everything's going to fall into place because when we prioritize our time with God, his plan for us is better than what we can have for our own. And so we will be able to fulfill the things that he wants us to fulfill. And then we will feel fulfilled leaning into his calling more than the calling or the plan that we have for ourselves.
Right. And we have to remember that we inherently are selfish beings.
Yes.
We are always going to think of ourselves first for the most part. Like everybody does. Like whoever you think you are.
Yeah.
We all to a degree are selfish. And so it makes sense why you feel like, man, I just want to go in here and get one thing and leave.
Yeah.
You probably are having a tough day. You probably are tired. However, that doesn't negate the necessity of somebody else hearing the gospel.
Yeah.
And while, yes, it's important to sometimes be able to take care of yourself and know where your limitations are, we also have to understand the importance of being able to take your eyes off of yourself and look at the greater good, the bigger picture, the bigger mission that's ahead of you. Like I said, all of us in ministry, we're tired. There's a lot going on. We're trying to keep appointments and meetings straight. We're trying to plan events. We're trying to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And yes, there are times where we got to say, all right, let me take a second and breathe. But there's also times we got to take our eyes off ourselves and be like, man, I might be a little tired right now or a little bit confused, might not know exactly what's going on, but I know I got to go get in the game and I got to do what needs to be done here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so a lot of it is just perspective, man. And it comes with time. It comes with maturity. It comes with just learning and growing in who Christ is and who you are in Christ,
right.
What our job is. Like, we are not here to just hang out at nice church buildings and drink coffees. Like, we're here to be the hands and feet of Jesus. It's something that we say around here a lot for a reason. So we mean it. It means something, you know? So
yeah, it's good. Well, this coming week at YA, we will not be having a message.
correct. Well, what we will do is a really cool service project for the Jackson High School teachers. We're going to be packing some goodie bags and some cool stuff for them to let them know that we love them and appreciate them, because I said this Sunday night too, like, we talk a lot about community here. We talk a lot about serving people. We're not going to talk about stuff and not give you an opportunity to do it, you know? And so this is just as important as any other week at YA. So I want you to be there. I want you to bring your friends. It's going to be cool. We'll have food. We'll have fun, but we will also be serving and loving our community and our awesome teachers.
We will try to do it outside, weather permitting.
Correct.
Other than that, that's all we have for you.
All right.
Thanks for watching. Hopefully see you this Sunday at 7 p.m.
Peace.
See you guys.